A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining with us on this second in the series of webinars on the impact of ongoing COVID-19 crisis across various sectors. This one specifically caters to real estate in the MENA and APAC region. Most of you already know me, but my name is Gaurav Singh, founder and CEO of Verloop.io, and I'm super thrilled to be moderating this discussion with a set of esteemed folks who we have been interacting for a while from the real estate industry and marketing as a whole. So today with us, we have Deepak Ramkrishna, Head of Marketing and Communications at Marathon Group. Deepak, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Pleasure to be here, Gaurav. Thanks for having me.
Along with Deepak, we have Stuart Quintal, Head of Growth at Property Finder. Thank you for joining us, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Gaurav, and thank you for the opportunity as well to be presenting today or talking today.
Welcome. Along with them, we have Ankit Kathuria, founder, Solvetude Marketing Consultancy, previously head of digital MR, and the man who launched Uber in India. Ankit, terrific to have you with us.
Thank you for having me here, guys. Thank you.
And along with all of you, I would also like to welcome all the audience who have already joined us and will be joining us in a while. And to all of you, I'll request you, please participate in the discussion. Any questions which you have, you can just use your panel on the screen to submit your questions. And we'll take them up as and when the time is right, otherwise towards the end of it. So before we start, let's do a quick round of introduction so that everyone can know you folks better, and will also be easier for them to know who to direct questions to as they come up to them. So let's start with you, Deepak. Tell us a bit about you and what's keeping you excited in industry these days.
Sure. Hi, Deepak Ramkrishna. I've been working with Marathon Group in Mumbai. Marathon Group, is a 50-year-old company, and I've been with them for the last 5 years or so. We have a very diversified portfolio within Mumbai, across products of, residential, commercial, retail, and, all kinds of ticket sizes as well. So it's been challenging to kind of, since our target audiences are very different during this time, even our strategies towards these, diverse set of audiences has to, be very tailored and very different for each, product. So that's been kind of exciting to kind of figure out what the new customer sentiment is and working to, serve that.
Definitely, especially like you said, Mumbai being the base, it must be very challenging given the situations right now. And we'll speak to you more on that as we progress with it. Stuart, over to you.
Yeah, Stuart Quintal, head of growth marketing technology at Property Finder, based in Dubai, UAE. I've only been in Dubai for the last 6 months now. So I moved from Australia, where I was worked for REA Group, so another property portal which was based out of Australia, but one of the largest in the world. Now, being here in Dubai, it's been a challenging 6 months, but very rewarding as well at the same time. And we run a number of portals across UAE, Qatar, Egypt, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, as well as a CRM platform as well that supports our customer base, agents and brokers.
And thanks, Stuart. I remember meeting you when I think you had just moved, maybe a month or two, and you were so looking forward to Dubai. I'm sure, over the next few months, you will explore it. It's a beautiful place. But yeah, must be an interesting time. Ankit, would love to hear more about you.
Sure. Hi, guys. This is Ankit. I run a digital and growth marketing consultancy based in Dubai. A quick background on that. Prior to this journey, I've spent most of my career working with tech companies like Uber, OLX, Make My Trip in different parts of the world. And then a few years back, moved to Germany and then in Dubai with a mission to essentially help other companies leverage the frameworks that I've seen work very effectively in these large tech companies, especially when it comes to digital and growth. So trying to help organizations who are in that stage wherein they want to take that leap towards digitizing their business. So just helping them pass through that phase and reach on the other side of having their businesses more digitally optimized successfully.
So Ankit, let's start with you. We'll probably start with a set of questions which we wanted to understand, and we'll keep the discussion fluid. So we obviously are speaking during the situation of a great gravity, right? The pandemic has clearly devastated most of the old ways of doing the way we were running the world, and the real estate has found itself into the spotlight. So with that backdrop, would just like to start with like asking sort of, since you have been working with multiple businesses, what has been the overall summary of this impact crisis in the region specifically as you see it?
Look, I think there have been phases in this as well. And I'll just take you guys back beginning of this year, right? Like, of course, there was a lot of optimism with Olympics, Expo 2020 happening this year. So obviously, the sentiment was very positive, especially in the first couple of months. Of course, everyone was aware of Corona becoming a big concern, especially in China and nearby countries. But there was a sense of resistance towards it that, okay, you know, it's limited to just one region and it's likely not gonna spread across, right? So I think the first 3 months or so were more of a resistance towards that. However, mid-March or so, when it started spreading across Europe, US, and even here, that's when, you know, the sense of fear kicked in, which is when the lockdown happened. And that's when a lot of businesses as well surrendered in a way wherein, you know, they stopped advertising, no lead generation efforts, because no one really knew how long will it take. But I think during that period of mid-March to April, a lot of the businesses tried identifying on how to come back when the things become somewhat better. Like, I think everyone acknowledged the fact that it's not really going to be the normal that we saw 6 months back anytime soon. So that might take a bit longer. But whatever this new normal is going to be, and there could be different definitions of that, how do we adapt ourselves to cater to that? And that's when at least some of our clients we saw, and we were able to convince them as well to start digitizing their businesses. And I'll maybe give you some examples as well. Like, how do you leverage, you know, if someone cannot come to view the apartments, can we do viewing virtually? Can we have virtual assistants in place? Can we do virtual tours, etc.? Right? And that's something that a lot of companies took advantage of in the early phase, and at a fairly low cost as well, because the media cost went down dramatically as a lot of advertisers went off digital platforms. Of course, when later in May and June, when things started getting a bit better, and there was a mandate to open up as well, a lot of other companies as well started following the same route. But of course, the companies, I would believe, who are a bit more courageous during the times of surrendering, the period of mid-March to April, definitely gained that first mover advantage. Now, of course, it's a phase wherein everyone has accepted that this is the new normal. How do we really adapt our business with this current circumstances? And, you know, like we were discussing earlier, the numbers are getting better. The benchmarks have certainly changed with respect to the price points, etc. So from an investor standpoint, there's a very good chance to get a pretty sweet deal at this point in time if you're serious about investments. And this is actually a time to buy, right? Like, you don't typically buy when the real estate market is at its peak. You buy at a time when the market is low. You sell at a time when the market is high. So it's actually a good time. And a lot of investors are showing that intelligence as well. So I think the market sentiment is getting better, especially in this month. Especially in June, we've seen some positive improvement after, I would say, 2.5 months of somewhat suboptimal performance.
Got it. But they say that never try catching a falling knife. So do you think the fall has stopped and now it is on the way to recovery, or how do you see it? I mean,
I think it's hard to state that we have reached the lowest level, but I would definitely say that if you invest now, and if you have a vision of, say, at least 5 years, there's definitely uptick to take from that. Like, there's no way in 3 to 5 years you will not see the upside on whatever investments you make in real estate right now. Like, the economics won't work if that's to be true.
I'm sure with Expo also happening next year, the economy has to go up because everything is going to change. I mean, with the barrage of people they are expecting to come. So when that happens, I'm sure all the prices are going to go up. So, yep, I agree there. So, Deepak, moving to you. I have personally, along with the team, followed for last, say, 12 to 18 months, the journey of Marathon Group, especially how you have been transitioning everything to digital and your focus on how you can do more and more with digital. And Ankit also touched that first movers, whoever did it during the time of crisis and surrender, or who started slightly earlier with their digital transformation journey with various frameworks, which I'm sure Ankit will touch on later, reap the benefits. And now everyone is following the suit. So what risk mitigation steps have you taken in short, medium, and then long-term response to crisis, like Ankit broke down that says short-term was somewhere around March, April, May, and now we are in the phase 2, and then there will be a long-term.
Sure. Like Ankit rightly pointed out, the first thing we did, when this whole crisis started, was do a hard pivot towards enhancing the online customer experience. Real estate obviously is a touch and feel product, so typically sales happen once the guy visits the site. But what we realized was that we had to quickly pivot to a model where a lot more information, a lot more transparency, and a lot more trust is built at the stage where the customer is still not visited your site. So we were fortunate, the way we are set up is we have an in-house creative team, in-house 3D renderers. So we could very quickly pivot and improve. We already had a pretty solid website and a lot of video content, but we also kind of significantly improved our virtual tours. In the short term, what we did was involve our sales team at a much earlier step in the process. Typically sales gets involved when the guy visits the site, but we got them in, earlier in the process. We had interactive presentations online. We, took customers through virtual tours online, on a screen share. So that's what we did in the short term. Another important aspect for us to kind of address demand in the short to medium term was to kind of help customers figure out how to finance their homes. Because, especially in the affordable category, it's probably the biggest purchase they're going to make in their lifetime. And with, the COVID crisis, threatening job security, etc., our goal was to find out, how can we ease or mitigate those concerns. So we quickly, got along with all our bankers, and we figured out a few schemes which we can offer. For instance, for the first time in our group's history, we offered a EMI moratorium on a ready-to-move-in property. We figured out, how customers can pay down payments in installments. So those are things that we quickly kind of pivoted to trying to figure out. Medium term, I would say this is not going to change anytime soon, like Ankit said, especially in Bombay with the cases going up. So medium term, our goal is to figure out how to make site visits as safe as possible. Because again, real estate is not going to change in the, fundamentally in the way people are going to buy it, which is, by visiting the site physically. So our goal is to try and figure out how to make that as safe as possible. So we put in place all kinds of measures since the lockdown, was partially lifted. Pickup drops, temperature checks, sanitization, the works. So that's just, and kind of communicating that to our customers also is an important, part of this to kind of build that confidence. As far as long-term is concerned, I think we're still not entirely sure how this is going to play out. But a couple of things that come to mind quickly is one, restructuring some of our debt. We're already talking to our bankers about that. And number two is reconsidering even some of our upcoming portfolio decisions. So for instance, where we are planning a commercial property launch, we kind of put that on hold and reevaluating whether we want to pivot that to a residential or, some other kind of, property.
Interesting. And like you touched that bankers helped you. I think bankers also were looking for more business in the region. I mean, in that whole period. So how did the bankers' role play out with you in that time? I mean, and how much help it did in actually making the journey with your customers more seamless and easy?
Honestly, it's been difficult with the bankers as well. So I'm sure you know, even prior to the COVID crisis, the NBFC crisis hit the Indian market a few months back. So liquidity was already a bit of a concern. With the COVID crisis coming in, it's actually stepped up a notch. So where we have loans that are partially disbursed that have been put on hold because banks want to reevaluate credit parameters of the customers again. We have demands that are due, but banks have put disbursals on hold till the lockdown lifts. So it's been a challenge, but fortunately, the business development people we're working with have been very proactive in offering solutions, to these issues, and also coming up with new products. Again, for them, it's a whole new thing. So even in terms of loan approvals, a lot of bankers have provided very good support in terms of moving that process online as well.
Got it. So as I understand, I mean, the whole of the 360 pivot in the experience of the customers, right from rendering more properties to banks to looking at even which properties to go after and what portfolio to go after, is how you have been navigating around this and helping the customers. That's interesting. So Stuart, coming to you, I remember when we met and we were discussing, you had a lot of things which you are planning to introduce into the property finder, and the features and the products which you were looking in both the short and the long run. So how has this crisis impacted on your planned initiatives? I'm sure few things would have got accelerated, few which have been pushed further. So how has been the whole of the impact in terms, as you say, that growth marketing and I mean on the technology side of it?
Yeah, so I mean, COVID-19 has obviously impacted everyone's business along the way, and our one definitely has also felt the impacts of COVID, especially when our, what we survive on is, the listing content, and listing content is provided by agents and brokers and developers. And then suddenly when you find that your consumers of that product are no longer able to view properties, fearful of how they're actually going to be able to transact with the property, you then suddenly see a contraction in the market, and also then with what we can offer or how we can offer. So very quickly we had to shift our focus to be able to support two sides of that marketplace. So how do people view a property, and how do we support our customers in being able to promote those properties to an audience that was still active. There were still people out there, but they were definitely a bit more cautious than what they were pre-COVID, because they couldn't go to view a property, and agents also weren't able to be there to talk to them to it. So a number of products we launched and supported during the crisis that came to market very quickly and very rapidly by our product teams were features to help people house hunt from home. So we had live viewing, so brokers were, when they were able to go to a property, they were able to do a live streaming to people that had registered to view it, but also video tours and also 360 tours were, we made them a lot easier to be surfaced on the site, and also provided training tools, and also tips for agents to be able to create better content, because when suddenly they're not able to talk to a customer face to face in front of the property, the content that they're advertising on the site suddenly becomes much more important. So better photos, better descriptions, and also discussing with their either vendors or landlords how to better optimize what the property that their listing is. So payment terms have definitely come into play over the last number of months, in terms of people being able to have more flexible payment terms than what they might have previously, as well as incentives to take a property. So there's definitely a lot more activity happening in that space.
Interesting. So, Stuart, you sit at a very interesting junction of marketing as well as technology together, right? I mean, a lot of times it gets challenging to get a very close support in terms of marketing and technology together, hardcore technology side. So, when you look at which features to build next 2 months while you're navigating, how are you assigning that which one to pick right away? And because I'm assuming most of it would have been on the intuition side of it, right? Because not enough data was available on what customers are doing or what customers are going to do. So how did you prioritize? Just a bit of light if you can throw.
So we're just entering into our next quarter. We've just gone through the quarter planning and prioritization at work. So what we've definitely sort of looked to, coming out of the COVID crisis, it was, how do we make sure we help our customers survive? And now, as we come out of it into the new normal, it's okay, what is it that's going to help accelerate their transition to a new normal? So the property industry is sometimes quite slow to, I've worked in the property industry for the last decade. There's sometimes been the slow to move to a digital mediums, but the last 3 months I've never seen the industry move so quickly towards adopting better digital practices, endorsing, the way that they promote properties, the way they interact with consumers, and as also the way they transact with property. So the way we're looking at it now, we're sort of coming back to a new normal, but the way we prioritize now is looking at the data points. So we're very much focused on the data we've collected. We're doing very rigorous, analysis of what it is that we prioritize to be able to sort of ensure that we're delivering the right things, because now potentially we can't offer as many features as we may have wanted to in a market that was booming. We've now got to make sure we're aligned to what the customer and consumers are needing, and we're able to sort of optimize as such. In terms of like the marketing and the technology space, that's definitely become a bigger shift or bigger focus, especially in our organisation. It's how do we make sure we're sweating our assets the right way and optimising everything from a budget perspective, as well as wastage, making sure we're not wasting our dollars when we spend it.
Got it. Interesting. Would love to know more about it sometime. So, Deepak, coming to you. So, whenever we talk about COVID, right, it always boils down to the behavior that's changing, or how the industry is slowly responding. And one thing that doesn't get that you focus right now is how massive the customer fear has been, and the number of queries which they have started asking in the pre-sales journey before even deciding to go and visit. Because now even when they want to visit, I mean, they have 10 questions around, is it safe to go? How will I go? What security norms are being followed there, right? So people are avoiding stepping out and spending a lot of time before that demo, before in the pre-sales journey, pre-qualification journey. So how is Marathon Group handling these pre-sales queries, while also ensuring that if the barrage of queries is coming, I mean, the wait time can't be so high, or I mean, you have to address them quick, because I mean, the longer you take to respond, the lesser are the chances of conversion. So how have you been handling all of that? I think some of the things you already touched, but would love, I mean, if you can expand on this pre-sales journey and how you are doing this pre-qualification journey.
Sure. Just a bit of context, I think, would help in terms of how a typical pre-sales, unit works in real estate. So in Indian real estate, I think the pre-sales journey is still something that's not matured. Most developers here are still doing a ton of cold calls, and also not being very transparent and sharing information on call. Till now, the paradigm has been, share as little information as you can to get the client to site, and then kind of, share all the information there. So their goal was kind of just to get the client to site. We have, in fact, even prior to COVID, consciously tried to move away from that. We want to provide the client all kinds of details before, they come into site, all kinds of video walkthroughs, 360 transparent pricing. So that's something we had already been doing. And with this new crisis, I'm more and more convinced that that's probably the right direction, to go in. In terms of, the pre-sales experience, interestingly, what we found is, obviously the number of leads has decreased, and we're also focusing on, higher intent leads, for instance, via Google search rather than through ads on social media. So while the number of leads has decreased, you rightly pointed out the engagement time has gone up. Customers are answering calls, more often, spending more time on calls, seeking way more information. And that is something we are more than happy to share. In fact, like we were chatting just prior to this call, having a chatbot integrated, with our inquiry system and our CRM system has really helped, because it helps us pre-qualify, all our leads. Most people look for 3 or 4, bits of important information. Does it fit my budget? Is the possession date suitable to me? Is the location all right? So as long as you can provide these 3-4 bits of information quickly to the client, I think you're servicing 90% of your leads there. About 90% drop out at that point, because it's probably partially not meeting some of those parameters. So that helps us kind of engage better with the 10% that is qualified. So yeah, we have been transparent traditionally, but now we're increasing our transparency. We've also started something called digital tours, over Google Meets, where, like I was saying, we get our sales team also involved at an earlier point in the customer journey. So the sales team steps in, via screen share with the client. We've made interactive presentations that the client can control, what he wants to see. They can look at a 360 panoramas. So yeah, we're just trying to provide as much information as we can at the pre-sales level itself. And I think that's going to continue for a while now.
Got it. So essentially building upon customer experience more and more and being more upfront with the customers rather than trying to lure them to walk into like a, you said that that has been a set norm so far that you can walk in and then we'll try to do a in-person sale. So rather than that, build a digital journey and touch on the customer experience.
Absolutely.
So, Ankit, sticking with the customer experience for a little longer, just because I mean, how critical it gets in determining where the customer is going to transact from. Because once a buyer has decided that he wants, I mean, it just becomes who gets that share of pocket. And now builders are pushing for direct sale as well as, I mean, the other property search sites are trying to get the same share of wallet. So customer experience gets critical and the digital push has to be there. So given your experience working with multiple companies, why don't you take us through, I mean, how you have been assisting businesses with the push for digital customer experience, levers which you suggest, what things out of those fall into your SMILE framework? I mean, I think it's the right time that you take us through the framework as well on things which you suggest people and how it has worked for various businesses and stuff around that.
Sure. So, now that you've spoken about SMILE framework, let me just give a quick background for everyone. So, SMILE framework is essentially a framework that helps businesses that generate awareness or interest online and sell offline. So essentially largely generating leads online, but selling offline, something that I kind of built while I was at MR and we experimented there, and it was very effective for a business like MR, wherein you're generating leads online and selling offline. And I could see that this could be very well adapted to different categories as well, wherein this kind of model works, whether it's real estate, B2B, BFSI, automobile, and so on. Now, what happened in this case, Gaurav, is that, when in mid-March, April, when things were being locked down, obviously there was a fear, right? And people wanted to preserve cash, and the marketing spend went down across all sectors. Of course, there were some sectors which were affected way more. Travel, for example, expected that, they're not going to be coming back anytime soon. Now, the implication of that is that, one, as more people spend more time at home, they are actually spending much more time on social media, they're spending much more time on online digital media, and across profiles, whether it's a teenager or it's an investor or a businessman or a CEO, they're all spending much more time online. At the same time, because the ad spends have gone down, the inventory that's available on these mediums became extremely cheap. So you're able to generate leads, etc., at a much lower cost. So I used some of these stats to explain and identify silver lining in the situation along with some of our clients. Like, just to give you some stats around the numbers on how the usage on some of these social media apps increased. For example, Facebook, Instagram, like there was 70% growth in time spent on these apps. Time in group calls on WhatsApp, etc., increased by more than 1,000%. Right? There was 50% month-on-month increase in messaging across social platforms. Live views on Instagram and Facebook increased dramatically. Like there was a period at that lockdown of around a month or so, wherein the numbers were literally increasing by 15% week on week. And we're talking about massive numbers when we talk about Instagram stories and Instagram live. Now, what that means is that if you are in the game for long term, and if you see that silver lining wherein there is media available at a lower cost, why don't you utilize that period to create sales pipeline for future? So we tried doing these experiments for some of our clients. And to be fair, the results that we saw, in a way, superseded my expectations as well, at least in terms of the cost efficiency. Like from March to April, we saw a decrease of cost per lead of 80% for one of my clients, right? Now, that's something that I even didn't thought of, that this is something that can happen. But largely the campaign types were the same. Yes, the creatives are a bit more tweaked to cater to the time as well. But largely the targeting, etc., was very similar. But purely because there was much more reach available and there was lesser advertising spend, that just mean that the CPM, CPCs have all gone down. So you can take advantage of that. Another thing that started happening at that point in time was And again, one of our clients were the first ones to do this. We realized that people are scared to step out. The sales centers were still open even in mid-March, but people were still a bit scared to step out. So we were the first ones to start this virtual assistant model, wherein you don't have to step out. You can have a chat with a property consultant the way we are having a chat now, right? And it could be very personalized, could be at your convenience, like whatever time you want to schedule that, you can do that as well. And then like some examples that Stuart gave as well. And I think property aggregators like Property Finder also played a very important role in that case, wherein when they launched this live viewing, etc., a lot of companies really leveraged that quite well as well. So essentially, a lot of these features were used. Now, of course, everyone is in a way trying to use that. But like I said earlier, the ones who started early definitely had that defining advantage, wherein people can associate that, okay, this is the brand that offered me this thing way sooner than others. And in case of Dubai, it becomes even more important because a large part of investment in real estate in Dubai happens from international markets like China, India, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, UK. Now, with people not being able to travel, the only way for the sales guys to showcase the inventory is through live viewing and live stories and so on. And a lot of our clients actually leverage that very well. And it was quite heartening to see that, very quickly they were able to see sales results as well. Another factor for that is, while we saw that this pandemic started in China and they were affected more initially, but over time, as it started spreading across other markets, we saw China recovering as well, which is why it was also one of the first markets which again started investing back in real estate. So we saw some early positive results coming in from China as a market as well, for example. So I think it was a mix of trying to identify the markets internationally wherein there is a situation that is still somewhat better and there could be interest in investing in real estate. And there are certainly merits when you think about Dubai's rental yield, etc. And leveraging the right digital tools and being the first mover in that case.
I'm so sorry, I was on mute. So thanks, Ankit. I have personally been a big fan of Property Finder's virtual tour. Like we were just discussing that I have been looking at a lot of properties around and I have been using that tool quite a lot to figure out, because it's just a lot better and more realistic to view it rather than just looking at the pictures. So I've been a big fan of that, Stuart. So with that, I'm not sure, Ankit, which business you are talking about right now, but probably I'm not in the market, so I don't know that yet. But I'm sure the right investors as well as buyers have that in eye, and it would have worked. Like you said, 80% leads drop is CPL is amazing. So Stuart, both Deepak and Ankit touched about the digital innovation and how customer behavior has shifted to stay indoor, ask more questions and see if things could be done virtually rather than stepping out. So to understand from you, given like the Property Finder's scale and the plethora of options that you offer on both the buyer side as well as the seller side, what various growth hacks, processes, things you have been introducing and how has their results been? Because like I said, you marry both the marketing as well as technology. So you get a lot better grip to execute things for the customer. And one of the things which Ankit touched, virtual tour, I personally have been using that a lot. So what else and how has that played out for you? Ankit, of course, has very great numbers to back that up with. So would love to understand your experience there.
We obviously, Ankit has shared that from where the publishing platforms realized that they were losing customers, that something became a lot more affordable for people to run, advertisers like ourselves to run activity. So we definitely the property industry that we all sort of work in is one of those industries that is a physiological need. Everyone needs a roof over their head. So even though they potentially couldn't transact, suddenly you saw people 24/7, they were living in they were working from their house, it was suddenly school was in their house, and their gym was in their house. So we sort of knew that there will be a period of time where this activity would need to sort of be released into the world. So we maintained a very strong brand presence, because we knew at some point the restrictions would ease, and you want to be the ones that are in front of the audiences while they're spending all that time at home on digital channels. So we entertained them. We tried some new formats, so video formats. We did a lot of activity on social media channels. We ran a lot of entertainment posts, basically to keep people informed and also entertained during lockdown. And that sort of the benefits of that has been seen as we've come out of lockdowns. The demand for the demand for property has increased to levels pre-COVID, and customers are also receiving more leads than what they did pre-COVID as well. Transactions are a trailing edge of that, but we've seen some early indicators from the transaction data that we get from our partners at the UAE government. So we also have another brand, Data Finder, and sort of for our customers, we've been running weekly webinars during the intense periods of COVID to now fortnightly webinars with our customers, basically sharing the data and sharing insights. As Deepak said, transparency has been a big thing, not only on a consumer front, but for customers as well. We have lots of data being an aggregator, and one of those big things is being, one of our big moves has been to make sure we're transparent with that data, so that customers can use that and become more innovative in the way they present to their customers. So we trialed a lot of, we're able to test a lot of methods, test a lot of creative, test a lot of channels, optimize a lot of that activity at lower costs, and the benefits of that we've sort of been able to run a lot more efficient marketing campaigns with a budget that's sort of more in line with the current conditions, and still benefit from that long term. Our SEO has also come into play as well, because SEO is an area that some areas of business they forget about. We doubled down on our SEO during this period. We've been trialing some new formats that Google's been releasing, and that's starting to pay dividends as we come out of this as well. And SEO is the seed that you plant and continue to water long term, so that you can harvest in a year's time, the benefits that come in a year's time. Yeah.
Got it. That's interesting. So yeah, like you said, SEO takes a while. It takes a while to slowly grow, and once it hits, it just hits, and then it just starts paying you dividends in the long run. We personally have seen as a business, while our numbers are still small, but for a SaaS company, I mean, we have been growing almost our traffic now by 50% month on month. While first 18 months, we were like, why are we even spending a penny on this whole exercise of SEO? Because the results were just not there. But somewhere around December 2019, it started picking up. And from December, getting around 4,000 hits a month to today, where we sit at about 80,000 a month. I mean, it has been just phenomenal to watch how your efforts and working right, generating the right content starts paying you dividends once the Lord said, Google, get happy on what you have been doing. So part art, part science, part just being more useful to customers. So I'm sure at your scale, I can only imagine what those numbers must be and how they help you bring the overall CPLs down. Because I mean, when you look at blended, then SEO returns are so much better. So now coming back to all three of you, in my opinion, have been using one of the, like Ankit said, that consumption of social went up, the consumption of messaging went up, WhatsApp calls went up. In the whole of that time, what I also saw, I mean, in personal opinion and personal experience, as well as the businesses that we have been working with, the WhatsApp consumption went up, like dramatically shot up. Everyone just wanted to use that platform in one way or the other, and everyone just started spending time. And all three of you have used that technology. And interestingly, all three of you have been using it in very different ways. Like Stuart has a button where the chat directly starts. Deepak does it very different. And Ankit uses it for a lot of lead generation from what my experience has been. So And it's a very high tech right now. So how all three of you have been using? Deepak, would you like to share what you have been doing with WhatsApp, what numbers it has helped you with, and how it has helped us?
Sure. So, one of the main challenges we came to Verloop with was, in India, real estate is quite a pestering kind of a business where, a lot of cold calls, as I mentioned earlier. And, with Truecaller now, a lot of those numbers get marked as spam. So what happens was, even when a customer submits an inquiry himself on your website, quite often you're not able to get through to them, because when you dial, your number shows up as real estate and they simply cut the call. So, about 30 to 40% of our leads were going cold, where we couldn't even reach them after multiple attempts, even though they had dropped the inquiry themselves on our website. So that was the problem with which we kind of came to Verloop and the chatbot. But what we've seen with the chatbot is that, like I said, we're able to instantly give them, information on WhatsApp. Each of our pre-sales guys also has their own WhatsApp business account with which they're equipped to kind of send whatever information the customer wants instantly, be it brochures or videos, etc. So yeah, WhatsApp has, like I said, helped pre-qualify leads. The chatbot also has been an interesting one. We've seen a lot of interaction, and as we've kind of refined the responses, we've seen a greater degree of interaction with the chatbot, where a customer who's exploring one project is now exploring, say, 3 or 4 different projects and spending, more time. Another interesting thing that we've achieved with WhatsApp is a lot of automation. So what I mean by automation is that, earlier we were doing a lot of automation via SMS and email. A client gets an appointment confirmation. 10 days after visiting the site, he gets a reminder on whether he'd like to revisit the site with his family. So those kind of things earlier were getting lesser opens and lesser clicks via SMS and email, but with WhatsApp being ubiquitous, adding those automations to WhatsApp has been a huge plus for us.
How about you? How have you been using it? What help it has been driving for you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch the last question. No, your voice is breaking up.
Breaking, Gaurav.
I think, yeah, we're just sort of struggling to hear a bit, Gaurav, but I'll give a point of view from our perspective on the property portals. We do provide a number of ways that property seekers can get in touch with or drive a lead to a agent or broker. One of the reasons is that sometimes a property seeker may not want to immediately receive feedback from an agent or broker. They may be late at night, they may just be browsing the site, and they just may want to site or app, and they may just want to send an email because it's convenient for them at that time, and then the next day they may want to receive an email back. But we also provide the WhatsApp button as well for people to immediately contact. So that's probably starts to give an indication for a broker or an agent as to the intent of when a property seeker may be looking to move. If they're potentially just browsing and they're still a little bit cool, they may just use an email to sort of get that lead to a client. But when they're with the WhatsApp, or when they use WhatsApp, they're probably leaning in, they're much more hot lead. So it's sort of where customers need to sort of respond back in kind to a property seeker using the channels that they want to hear from. So if an email comes through, potentially use an email to send back. If it's a phone call back, a WhatsApp back. And especially in a market like UAE, where English is predominant language, but also there's everyone that has second or third languages. They may not be aware, may not be confident using certain channels or certain languages that a broker may use.
Great. Am I audible now?
Yeah, great.
Finally, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to my other headphones. So, thanks, Stuart. I unfortunately missed a bit of it, but I think I'll go through it when the video, using the recording. So, Ankit, coming to you, how has been your experience?
Yeah, WhatsApp in general, I think it has changed the way business communication work itself, right? Like, and maybe more so in Middle East as a region, wherein I know a lot of businesses that do not operate at all over emails and like literally run the business over WhatsApp. So if culturally that's true for how businesses are communicating, it's equally true for the consumers as well, right? Like they would also prefer to communicate through WhatsApp instead of calling up or submitting a web lead, which is why, and this is not something just in this period. I think we've been seeing this trend for at least past 2 years itself, wherein WhatsApp is becoming almost an organic source of lead generation and interest creation as well. Uh, and it's not actually just limited to your digital assets. You can have a QR code on your brochures as well, which can initiate a WhatsApp conversation, for example. Right? So the idea has always been to make sure that your WhatsApp number is spread across. And the fact that you can have your WhatsApp number to be the same as your 800 brand number, that means that the user doesn't even need to save two separate numbers. So the same number to call your direct support or your sales team, and the same number to have a WhatsApp conversation started as well. And for a lot of these users, wherein they just want to get started, maybe they don't really have clear idea on their budget, etc. They just want to have an initial conversation. WhatsApp turns out to be a much more convenient mode. And if you combine WhatsApp with the other digital offerings that we were discussing around virtual viewing, etc., wherein you can even schedule these viewings on WhatsApp, then it makes the entire customer experience way more seamless and convenient, wherein they don't even have to go beyond that single app that typically they use the most today.
Got it. Interesting. So we're now running short of time. We have about 6 minutes. So I think we should jump to questions right away. So Bhavna has asked that decision making is most impacted among customers, even after engagement online and offline both. What do you think a realtor can do for increasing conversions? Reduction in price is not something that most want to do. So, Deepak, Stuart, Ankit, whoever would like to take this question.
So yes, like you rightly said, reduction in price is not an answer to everything. There are, for example, our affordable projects are already on razor thin margins. So a reduction isn't out of the question. But there are a couple of things that we are doing and which has been paying dividends, so far. One is assuring the customer that they will get the best price. So we have a best price guarantee where, for the next 6 months, we are assuring the customer that if we have to reduce prices to kind of, stay in the market, we will pass on that benefit to you as well. So price assurance is something that we are offering, to our customers. And that's something that is really helping us convert those customers who otherwise might have been on the fence and waiting a bit longer to make that decision.
Got it. So next question is from Pratish and Stuart. I would like you to answer this question. How to market ultra luxury and premium products in real estate sector? Because the ticket size being huge, it's difficult to find the correct leads and converting these leads into the site visit. So how has Property Finder been looking at, what has been your experience in selling the top of the most expensive and premium apartments, and like Dubai is full of them. So.
I mean, yeah, as you say, Dubai is full of ultra luxury and premium products. I'd sort of say that, when you're selling more of a, when it's a ultra luxury or ultra premium, it's then becomes a lot more about the lifestyle choice. So how do people promote, how do you look to make sure that the lifestyle factors are included in that, as in the luxury and premium end, and sort of look to more so match that level of service with that sort of high end product. You can still promote luxury and premium products on portals. There's ways to also to upweight what that is on a portal. We do a lot with developers. We do a lot with our high end products. There's custom ways that they can create landing pages and then also generate the leads for that. But then it comes down to if the leads are coming in to a broker, developer of those high-end properties, the service levels become even more important. So how are they actually servicing those leads, and how are they actually making sure that what they're selling is not necessarily is aligned to, or is actually aligned to what the expectation of the property is. So you sort of need to then look at how do you upweight service levels around it, and it may be a little bit different to maybe an offline experience as well as an online experience, but it's definitely an area where people want to be pampered. They want to know that what they're paying for is going to give them a dividend, or also make sure it enhances their lifestyle. I hope that answered your question, but I'm definitely open to discuss it in more length as needed as well.
Sure. Thanks. I think real estate at the high end will go the way China has been moving to WeChat for a lot of luxury shopping brands like Louis Vuittons, and a lot of brands now first exclusively launch on chat, and they give a very white glove service there, and then they move people in the funnel there. So that has been quite a successful story. I have been reading a lot on how those folks have been doing, and probably real estate will follow that suit. Now, like you've been saying, that people want to be pampered and they want that similar experience imitated when they are on chat or any way, I mean, when they are in the virtual. So that's interesting. So Ankit, this question probably you can answer best, which is by Frisha. Real estate comes to mind as a brick and mortar with regards to the customers. How does digitizing it work? Does one experience a similar to viewing a space in person? I think this will also go around the virtual tours, which you have been helping businesses build around, and other experiences. So how do you marry it to be as close to, say, physical world and physically going and touching and looking at it? And
yeah, I think there are two things that have happened. One, of course, the technology has evolved, and through these live viewings, virtual tours, just at a click of a button, and you can very easily browse through the entire apartment's interiors and exterior as well. And for developers who are already working on it, obviously they leverage that. So one is the technology side that has helped in terms of churning out these virtual tours across multiple properties. In fact, there are tours that cover the entire map of Dubai as well. Now you see the entire map of Dubai as a virtual tour. You can pick a specific location. Within that location, you can pick a specific community, a specific building, and can go further inside if you're looking for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and you see the entire interiors. So that's the level of technology that exists today, and some of the brands are using that as well. So that has certainly helped in terms of churning this out. The second part is that, in a way, COVID-19 has forced all of us and all the businesses and the consumers to digitally transform as well, right? Like, people are spending more time on social media and on digital media, even for their personal conversations. That's the only way for you to reach out to your loved ones as well. So people are actually doing more video calls. So that's becoming more of a norm as well, which is why they're also feeling a bit more comfortable with that. So I think one is on the technological side, where it has helped in terms of making things like these available. Second is the behavior is changing and getting inclined towards that as well. Maybe it was forced, but now I think we are all to some extent tuned to that as well.
Got it. Deepak, last questions directly to you. So do you think investing in social media can give us more leads right now? This is by Bridge.
Sure. To specifically answer the question, yes. Like Ankit was touching upon it earlier, the cost per leads have come down drastically. So we've been generating leads for affordable projects at 10 cents a lead, which is absolutely ridiculous. But what you also have to kind of think about is what your objective is. So yes, there's a lot of interest. People are spending more time on social media. They're likely to inquire about your property, but is that getting you ROI in the short term? That's a question that will only be answered by tracking what happens very closely, especially in real estate, by tracking through to offline conversions, whether they're visiting your site, whether they're actually booking the property. So to continuously optimize for offline conversions is what we are focusing on right now. And also, we're also shifting focus of our investments to more higher intent areas like a Google search rather than a social media, because that is, obviously the customer is showing intent to buy property, and the ROI can come in quicker over there, especially when marketing budgets are a little strapped right now.
Got it. Interesting. So we have already run short of time. So just one question before we part. What's one key takeaway to the audience? I mean, if you have to summarize it in one sentence, Stuart.
You picked me first. Yeah, in one sentence, the new normal is that sort of embrace change. If if you don't embrace it, you're not going to be able to sort of react, change to it or react to it, and also then adapt. So embrace and adapt to change. It's here now, it's here to stay, and people are finding ways to evolve to the new normal. That's more than one sentence, but yeah, you got me first.
Yeah, I'm sure. Ankit?
I would say there's always a silver lining in whatever situation it is. And as businesses, we need to preempt the change in consumer behavior and how our industries would run and respond to that. I think that to me is like the bottom line.
Got it. Deepak, what according to you, is a key takeaway?
Sure. So I feel businesses have to get, have to start really caring, at least the business that weren't earlier, have to start really caring about their customers, especially at a time, when the pandemic is on, actually caring about the safety of their customers. So a lot of businesses out there are, virtue signaling right now. But I think eventually customers are going to read through that. So you have to take genuine steps to be more transparent, and actually put in place measures to keep your customers safe as well.
Thanks. So essentially move towards digital, be more, be truly genuine and upfront with the customers and embrace as many technological changes as you can to assist people be able to do virtually things that they otherwise needed a physical presence to do it. And of course, digital is cheap right now. So make sure that you are smart enough and using the right growth hacks to do things there. Thanks a lot for this. I would like to wrap this up, and thanks to all of you for joining, along with the audience for joining and asking the questions. So we'll be sharing the recording once this has been processed and has been made with all of you. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure speaking to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.